if I have friends who are trying to get into real estate investing, the first question you need to answer is where are you going to invest? Try to be a little objective about it, and you probably want to pick somewhere nearby. 2, what type of investment should you do? My recommendation would be something with at least a little value add to juice the returns and give you experience in real estate investing so that maybe one day you could do the higher, crazier opportunistic deals. And 3, make sure your investors know how they're going to get paid back because you don't want any lack of clarity there. Hi, so I'm out here in the rain. It started raining, but I told myself I was gonna make this video no matter what. So this is my first video, and this is what commitment looks like. So if I'm a bit wet, just know that I wanted to get this out. My name's Edward Sapp. I am the founder and principal consultant at Sapp Capital Advisors, among other hats that I wear and have worn in the past. And without divulging confidential details, I do work with a lot of people in different spaces, and I think that gives me a unique perspective in my world. One of those things, like if I have friends who are trying to get into real estate investing, the first question you need to answer is what do you want your money to do? Do you want it to grow fast with risk? Do you want it to be more of a safeguard of your asset? Or do you kind of want to try best of both worlds, right? Like buy an asset that has safeguarded qualities but has some risk to upgrade it. And I think a lot of people do find that middle ground attractive because, think of maybe a shopping center in the middle of a growing and gentrifying area that maybe could use a little TLC. Well, that shopping center has demographic tailwinds behind it, right? What do you look for when you look for demographic tailwinds? Household formation, income growth, occupancy rates in the neighborhood, value of home growth, population density increasing, not necessarily, but these are just things, right, that you would associate with a place that was doing better. And so one thing that's been on my mind since I ventured out on my own from my old job, which still love those people, still love that job, was like, how can you actually create like a map for that? And when you dive into it and get into the weeds, the like profession of that is called GIS. But I like to do things on my own, so I built this tool that shows all these things on a map, and I actually, it's called demographIQ.ai. If you're watching this and you are like, that sounds interesting, just shoot me a note. I've got a contact form on my Sapp Capital website. I haven't sold a single seat. I haven't marketed it at all. I'm just kind of sitting on it. But the whole point of this tool is to show you that right now it shows you a map with colors of the United States. Red is hot, green is cold. I might want to change the color scale and add a legend, but that's neither here nor there. It shows you on a map where you've got all the census data, right? So, and you can see it physically on the shapes for each census area, like a county, a zip code, a state. And this allows you to see with your eyes where you have high home values and where you have high rentals. And then you can start doing stuff like, where are the growth rates over the last 5 years? Are those high growth rates? Is it going down, right? What's the rate of change for this area? And you can create all of these kind of decision factors where you pull this information for the whole United States at the level that you care about first. So probably at the county level to start, because there's about 3,200 counties. So you start with counties and you just go, what do you as an investor care about? And this will tell you in a rank for each metric, which county is at the top of the list, which county is at the bottom of the list. Like what's the most populous county versus maybe which county has had the most population growth, right? These are things that are helpful, and they're not all going to be correlated to value, but basically that's the first question of investing in real estate, is where do you want to do it? So I guess I skipped over that. So yes, what do you want your money to do for you, but also where do you want to do it? And for most people, it's going to be somewhere nearby that fits the criteria that we just talked about demographically, which is where's a healthy neighborhood? And you don't have to just use census data to answer these questions. You can use your brain, your gut, your local market knowledge. These are all valid ways to figure out where you should invest. Because if you're really from the area and you know that there's probably going to be a factory built, over there, just based on public discussions with council about allowing it or something. If you know what's going on, that's an edge that, numbers, you can only crunch so many numbers. So that's a good edge to have too, that local edge. So questions are, where do you want to do it? And how much do you want your money to work? So you take all that information, all those factors, you rank them all, then for each ranking you apply a percentage, so they all add up to 100%. So like, I 20% care about home value growth, I 5% care about total population, I 10% care about population density, and then maybe you add your own data from other data sets, like school rating of the area. What's their school for this area, like where this address is, what's that school rated? You can layer stuff like that on, but I wouldn't do that till like you're really getting choosy. You find where, and let's say you can get down to like neighborhood blocks with this census data. So you can get down to like several streets. So this is really specific stuff. So let's say you find a couple of neighborhoods in Atlanta, where I am, and you say, these are the neighborhoods that I care about. Now you start hunting for deals, and finally you find a deal in a neighborhood that's growing. You drive it, you go there as a person, you talk to people, you talk to brokers, you have human interactions with the space too, because again, numbers are only going to tell you so much. But you go here, you find a deal that you like, you look for something that needs a little bit of love. That could be a nice sweet spot deal for a lot of people, because it allows for some capital appreciation, but it's not, crazy gunslinger stuff, right? Like, for your first real estate deal, if you are very comfortable with risk and understanding you as an investor have limited skills to apply to the deal, you probably don't want to do the craziest thing. But on the flip side, you might not want to overpay, but pay for a trophy asset that's only going to cash flow 6% or something like that, right? You want something between the two. So what do? You value add. I mean, value add could be a good start. I would not go crazy. I wouldn't do a full tear down and rebuild unless you're comfortable doing construction. Unless you've done the diligence and you're very, very considerable. Unless you've done the diligence and you really know what's going on with development, I would not do a little bit, get a taste. What's it like working with contractors? How do people screw you? How do things go wrong? How do you sell an investment with an aggressive enough timeline, but not such an aggressive timeline that when things take longer, your investors are mad at you? And you got to communicate things. If you're doing it with your own money, then congratulations. You've got nobody to please but yourself, but you still want to do the best job. So it's good to have a business plan, not just for the investment, but for when your investors get their money back and how. Because if it's a cash flowing investment, so you buy a shopping center, you fix it up, you increase rents, you tighten up your occupancy. Do you hold it forever? Or do you sell it, find another ugly shopping center, do it again, right? So if you do that flipping strategy, you will make more theoretically over the long term, but you have to keep in mind, you got to keep doing that. That's your job now. You have to find shopping centers, you have to flip them, you have to maintain relationships with contractors and developers. That's your job now. That is what you do. And that's totally fine, but that needs to be clear to your investors. Okay, I'll give you your money back over time. And then, if you're going to hold it and only pay them cash flow, what if they want to exit? Someone's going to want to exit at some point. How do you value it, right? So these partnership questions are going to be important. So sometimes it might even just be easier to do these buy, fix, flip deals. It really comes down to what you want. I know a lot of people are attracted to the idea of passive income through real estate. And I'm not here to say whether or not that's achievable. I mean, if you want to run your real estate well, you're going to want to be a good steward of your own capital. So you're going to want to make sure, even if you've got everything outsourced, you have to check on those people. You can't just let them do their jobs and trust for the best, right? Because someone might get lazy, something might not be done right. They might have just misunderstood you and had the best intentions, but nothing runs on autopilot. And especially if you have a huge amount of capital at stake, nothing runs on autopilot. We touched on where you want to buy real estate if it's your first investment. we touched on what kind of deals to search for. And to summarize there, because I may not have been very clear, there's cash flowing real estate, just straight, you buy it, you get cash flow. It's safe, it's main on main, beautiful building, maybe new, fully occupied, everybody loves it, everybody wants to be there. That's going to give you the least amount of return because it's got the least risk. The second is value add, where you might have something that is in a really good spot or has some reason why it's good and you're not really worried about it going, like, stopping being a worthwhile asset, but there's something you could do to elevate it, to bring it to market, right? It's fallen behind. There's a dingy old restaurant that's, that needs to be freshened up. The paint is bad. The parking lot is kind of ugly, right? These things do have a monetary impact on your property's value. That's middle spectrum because you're taking something more or less certain and you're adding value to it, and that's why it's called value add. Now, that's probably going to get you in the teens, low to mid teens returns. If you're underwriting a value add deal and your IRR is not in the mid to low to mid teens, then you should reconsider that investment because, and this is stuff we can get into later about like what's the right return, but generally core safe stuff less than 10%. Honestly, like less than 8 or 9% with where leverage is these days, because you have to keep in mind multifamily, if that's like a 5.5 cap and then your debt's at, you might have negative leverage at that point, like 6.5%. You just got to keep these things in mind if it's even worth having debt on some of these. Anyways, less than 10% core plus, 10 to 15% ish. You can get higher. These aren't rules. It's a scatter plot. Value add 10 to 15%, and then opportunistic is 20% plus, and that's like, yeah, go for it. If you're smart and you have a good deal, you might actually be doing an opportunistic deal, but you really need to know what you're doing to do those, and that's 20% plus. So there's some hair, there's something ugly, there's a tough ownership situation, there's a legal thing to sort out, there's chemical cleanup that you have to do because it used to be a gas station. They're an unfavored sector. So right now, recording in August of 2025, office, right? Office is, nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Well, a few years ago it was retail. Retail, nobody wanted to touch it. Well, people who touched it made some good money. And so if you're looking to be that guy now, you would be looking at office. Okay, so yeah, 20% opportunistic, crazy stuff. So 3 buckets. What do you want your money to do? Like me personally, I think that value add could be a fun space for someone because you buy it, okay, you bought a property. If that's a learning curve for you, then maybe do something more on that core side where you just buy a rental in a nice neighborhood or something. And you bought something, you took some risk, but there wasn't a lot of work to do. If that's a big pill for you to swallow and you've got more money down the line to invest, you can go through the motions, do one of those, know what it's like to invest in real estate. But if you have a limited set of capital and you want to make good money and real estate's something that you want to do, yeah, commercial or residential, this value add is a concept that applies to all forms of real estate. It's just, that might be a good first step for people with limited capital that want to learn because you have the component of it being safe, but then there's a little bit of construction and development and repositioning of the asset, which you might find interesting and a good learn, and you do enough of those, you might become like a value add sniper in the market. And eventually, once you really know somewhere like the back of your hand, you can start doing opportunistic stuff because you, with your knowledge and the skill that you've developed doing these value add deals, you will know what works and what doesn't. You've de-risked that, right? If you've never done a development and you're going to do a development, I want more money for that risk than if you're the guy who's been there for 30 years and you know how to develop. And that will be reflected in how you get paid as an investor. If you're the general partner and you're brand new to development, I don't want to see you taking a fat fee on entry, any fees, on like a low pref. I want a higher pref for sure on my waterfall. And then I want you getting paid in the splits on the back end, right? Like, I want you to be able to pay your employees and have the contingency and the developer fee that you need to sustain your business. But I'm just saying, as a personal investor, you're playing by the same rules, right? If people who give you money are going to treat you as a riskier prospect, then it is riskier for you. So it's probably worth de-risking your lack of knowledge and your lack of skill in doing more complex real estate tasks by first doing something in that middle ground where you're still pushing yourself and you're not just buying real estate and then going to sleep. You're still doing a business plan, but it has an end objective. Just be clear that when you do that business plan, that your investors have a clear understanding of when they're going to get their money back. And that can be as simple as a schedule that shows like, here's $100,000 going into this investment, and here's how you get your money back, with a timeline, like an actual like years or months or dates. And just make sure people know what they're getting into. And if you are going to do a perpetual vehicle that pays out, forever, if somebody wants to exit, you need to have that contemplated, and it has to be in a way that it's fair to the market at that point in time, which could change in a year, right? Like if they want to exit this year versus the next year, cap rates change, and people can't be holding on to peak valuations in another market, and that's when they choose to exit. Anyways, God bless, and thanks for listening.